Beelink has taken a shot at breaking the mold with their next-gen Intel Core Ultra-powered mini PC, and they've crammed a ton of features and performance into this NUC format device, including support for dedicated graphics cards. Can this possibly work? Let's find out. Hey guys, CJ with Elevated Systems here, and I've reviewed a lot of mini PCs, and for the most part, they're pretty similar, with the main difference being the CPU that powers each one. Not much has changed since the first Intel NUC was released over a decade ago. You basically have a CPU with integrated graphics, memory, and storage, all housed in a tiny box with some combination of USB, display, and expansion ports. It's a simple design that's become more reliable, and it's starting to replace large desktop towers in homes and businesses worldwide. For 80% of PC users, a basic CPU with integrated graphics is more than enough for their day-to-day computing needs. However, for the enthusiasts and gamers among us, the lack of a dedicated graphics options makes these mini PCs less appealing. Some models offer Thunderbolt and even Oculink connections for external GPUs, but even the best Oculink docks can still bottleneck most modern graphics cards. Beelink's new GT14 Ultra changes the game by offering a bunch of features not typically found in mini PCs, including the best possible solution for dedicated graphics expandability. So let's unbox this mini PC, check out its specs and features, and discover the secrets packed inside. Unboxing the GTi14 Ultra is a familiar affair, as most mini PCs have adopted the same packaging style. Slide the top off the box and you'll find the mini PC perched on top, wrapped in a protective sleeve. Underneath the PC, there's a user's manual, an HDMI cable, and a power cord. The first thing I noticed about the GTi14 Ultra is that it's larger than any other mini PC I've reviewed, measuring 158 millimeters squared by about 60 millimeters tall. The GTi14 is powered by an Intel Core Ultra 7 155H. This Series 1 Meteor Lake APU boasts 16 cores and 22 threads, including 6 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores, and 2 low power efficiency cores. As configured, the 155H operates at its default 54 watts. The APU features an integrated 8 Xe core Intel Arc graphics operating at 2.25 GHz and an Intel AI Boost NPU at 1.4 GHz, combining for a total of 32 TOPS of AI performance. The GTi14 includes 32 GB of DDR5 5600 memory, a 1TB M.2 NVMe Gen 4 SSD with a second M.2 slot for storage expandability, plus the latest Intel Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4 adapter. Accessing these modular components wasn't as simple as straightforward as it typically is with most mini PCs. Upon removing the bottom panel, you're met with features not typically found in most PCs, including a metal dust filter, a dual speaker module, and a 145 watt internal power supply. While less common, these aren't entirely new. What is the first in this form factor, at least to my knowledge, is the inclusion of a full-size PCIe Gen 4x8 expansion slot. This slot allows for up to 128 gigatransfers per second of bandwidth, which translates to about 16 gigabytes per second, or roughly 126 gigabits per second. This is almost double the 64 gigabits per second of full 8-lane Oculink connection, and nearly 4 times faster than Thunderbolt 4's 32 gigabit per second PCIe throughput. This PCIe slot is accessible through a slot on the bottom cover. However, there are a few caveats to this feature that I'll address in detail towards the end of the video. For now, let's finish up with the GTi14's features. On the front of the mini PC, we have a 10 gigabit per second Type A port, an SD card reader, a 10 gigabit Type C port, an audio output jack, a power LED, and power button with built-in fingerprint sensor. Finally, on the front, these small holes are a built-in AI-powered omnidirectional microphone array. On the back, we have the AC input, a headset jack, a 40 gigabit Thunderbolt 4 port, a DisplayPort 1.4 and HDMI 2.0, two 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports, and 4 additional 10 gigabit Type A ports. The Beelink GTi14 Ultra comes in frost silver or space gray and is currently priced at $849 US. Setting up the GTi14 Ultra is super straightforward. Just plug it in, connect your display, mouse, and keyboard of choice. When you power up the system, you're immediately greeted with the standard Windows 11 setup process, which included the fingerprint setup, and it worked flawlessly. Once complete, I was pleased to find that Beelink hasn't overloaded the already bloated Windows 11 with additional bloatware. A quick update of the OS and drivers, and I was up and running in no time. Now let's dive into the performance of the GTi14, comparing it to other mini PCs, most notably the similarly priced Geekom A8, which sports the Ryzen 9 8945HS. Starting with raw CPU computing power, in Cinebench 2024, the Core Ultra comes in slightly behind the Ryzen CPU due to its slightly lower 4.8 GHz boost clock. However, thanks to its higher core count, it achieves a 5% higher multi-core score. In Geekbench 6, however, the new Intel processor is outperformed by the Ryzen in both single and multi-core performance by 13 and 8% respectively. Moving on to real-world workloads, in the ProCyan productivity test, which measures the PC's ability to multitask in common office workloads using the Microsoft Office suite, the GTi14 has a slight 2% advantage. The same goes for Premiere Pro video editing performance, where the Beelink has about a 3% advantage. However, due to its slightly lower single-core performance, it falls behind the Ryzen-based mini PC in Photoshop by 14%. Now onto the iGPU performance. In a surprising turn of events, it seems that the Intel Iris Xe graphics have pulled ahead of the AMD RDNA 3 based graphics. In the Geekbench 6 OpenCL test, the Intel machine outscores the AMD machine by 18%, and in pure 3D graphics performance, the GTi14 outscores the A8 by 24%. But how does this translate into actual gaming performance? Well, surprisingly well actually. As we quickly go through the gaming results, you'll notice that the GTi14 Ultra outperforms or matches the A8 in every title tested. Ultimately beating the A8 by 23% in average FPS. Before I move on, let's talk about the biggest PC marketing acronym of 2024, AI. I'll briefly mention the NPU performance of the GTi14 Ultra by saying it's underwhelming at best. Compared to the Ryzen NPU, the Intel NPU falls 36% behind in the ProCyan AI inference tests and 39% behind in the Stable Diffusion image generation test. However, this isn't a big deal at the moment. Only Snapdragon X equipped Windows PCs are Copilot Plus enabled, so the number of apps that can actually take advantage of the NPU is limited. Plus, at least for me, anytime I use AI-based applications, whether it's a large language model like ChatGPT to polish my scripts or Generator Fill in Photoshop, it's done through the cloud anyway. And I get it, AI is the big catchphrase right now, so all the tech manufacturers feel the need to use it, but the bottom line is a mini PC is just not the tool for any serious AI workflows. So let's get back to the important stuff. As we saw, the GTi 14 Ultra seems to be a better overall gamer than the Geekom A8, but to be honest, this is more of a case of size matters than ultimate performance tuning. Geekom had to tone down some of the power settings of the A8 due to its very compact package and smaller cooling solution. The opposite is true of the GTi 14 Ultra. Its larger size, along with its large fan and huge vapor chamber, efficiently cools the Ultra Series 1 APU. This allows Beelink to set the PL1 to its max 54 watts while still keeping the fan curve down. Even at full load, the fan noise is practically inaudible. In fact, it's so quiet, I'll probably have to crank up the audio just so you can hear the difference between idle and full load. This configuration has some advantages, especially when it comes to performance. In fact, comparing the Core Ultra 7 155H to its more powerful sibling, the Core Ultra 9 185H, found in some high-end laptops, the Beelink beats it in multi-core performance, and it beats the new Ryzen AI 9 365. However, it also has some disadvantage. While at full load, the total power draw from the wall tops out at about 90 watts, and the CPU package temperatures stays below 90 degrees Celsius, which is great. At idle, the CPU is pulling up to 30 watts, which is exceptionally high. That can be fixed, and I'll get to that. But what is baffling is that even when completely shut down, the PC is pulling 3 to 6 watts from the wall, which is significantly higher than the maximum of about 1 watt we typically see from a power brick or internal power supply. In fact, even after being shut down for many hours, I discovered the PC itself was still warm, about 10 degrees warmer than ambient. I'm not sure what's going on there. It's not the USB ports. I only had a mouse and keyboard plugged in and they weren't drawing any power. I'm not sure how to fix that other than to just unplug it when it's not in use. However, if the idle power is a problem for you, that can be fixed. The Core Ultra is a mobile processor, but since battery efficiency isn't a concern for a desktop PC, Beelink didn't enable some of the CPU power saving features, specifically the C states. However, Beelink offers an extensive UEFI settings menu where you can customize everything. You can enable power savings modes, adjust power levels, and manage thermal and fan settings. There are even overclocking options, but be careful, there's no clear CMOS button, so overclocking might be risky. Okay, I'm getting to the PCIe slot, but first I want to quickly cover the other unique features that Beelink has included in the GTi 14 Ultra. First, the speakers, which are what I'd call okay. They're definitely better than a Mac Mini and even better than the crappy speakers in my gaming monitor. They're a nice addition and I think they work fine in combination with a good headset or headphones for a more immersive gaming or media consumption experience. However, what Beelink did very well was the integration of the AI enhanced microphone array. Yes, I said AI again, but this time it actually works pretty well. Instead of using the Intel NPU, which would require a software interface, Beelink integrated their own NPU into the microphone for a completely hardware solution, and it works pretty well. This is the raw audio from my studio microphone, and this is the raw audio from the Beelink microphone. The noise cancellation is also pretty good. If I turn on the AC unit sitting right behind me, it will be very apparent through my studio mic, but the Beelink can effectively cancel it out in real time, isolating the vocals nicely. Typing on my very clacky keyboard is also suppressed well. Additionally, no matter which way I spin the PC, the 360-degree omnidirectional mic picks up my voice at the same level. I've tested expensive teleconferencing microphone systems that you'd sit in the middle of a large conference room for teleconferences, and this works just as well as those. Okay, let's get to what most of you probably skipped ahead to, the PCIe expansion. First off, I mentioned caveats. You can't just plug a graphics card into the bottom of this mini PC. It just doesn't work that way. While I was able to add dedicated graphics to the GTi14 through a slightly modified PCIe Gen 4 riser cable and an external power supply, this option isn't really feasible either. I did determine that it is a fully functional PCIe 4x8 connection. I installed the NVIDIA drivers and used my RTX 3060 Ti to significantly boost gaming performance. However, the mini PC's 140 watt power supply isn't enough to power both the PC and provide the needed 75 watts of power to the PCIe lane for the graphics card. With the graphics card attached, max CPU power package only reached about 25 watts, and total power from the wall only managed to reach 85 watts. This explains why, even though I saw higher average frame rates, most games were just a stuttery, unplayable mess. There might be some UEFI settings to increase and better balance the power distribution, but the bottom line is the only non-janky way to add a dedicated graphics card to the GTi14 is with the use of a yet-to-be-released Beelink docking station. Now, Beelink said they're sending me one of these docks within the next couple of weeks, which will hopefully include a built-in power supply to provide both PCIe and supplemental power for graphics cards. How much power it provides will determine how powerful of a graphics card can be used. I was going to wait until I got the dock before publishing this review, but this video is already pretty long, so when it arrives, I'll do another video covering it. I can also compare it to a typical Thunderbolt eGPU dock and maybe even my Oculink dock if I can manage to connect the dock to the second M.2 slot. So disregarding the PCIe feature for now, I think the Beelink GTi14 Ultra has some solid advantages. The speakers are a bonus, the microphone is excellent, and it has Wi-Fi 7. If you have a capable router and fiber internet, it's faster than the included 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports. Plus, there are 2 of those, so that opens up the potential for home lab networking and firewall solutions. The expandability is great. With 6 USB 3.2 ports and Thunderbolt 4, you have a huge expansion options, including running 2 displays from Thunderbolt for a total of 4 possible. Audio outputs in the front and back is also a nice touch. The biggest surprise for me was the iGPU and gaming performance. Even without dedicated graphics, you can definitely have a solid gaming experience. Also, with the Iris Xe graphics and quick sync video, the GTi14 can handle more advanced 4K video editing than most of the mini PCs I've reviewed. It's also about the quietest mini PC I've reviewed. I also like the modularity of the GTi14. Most mini PCs have modular RAM storage and Wi-Fi, but this Beelink also has separate modular daughter boards for the front and rear I/O, as well as the modular speaker unit and power supply. So if you break a USB or HDMI port or burn out the PSU, it's theoretically a simple fix, assuming Beelink provides replacement parts. On the downside, I wish Beelink had spent some time with the firmware, at a minimum enabling and tuning the P-states so the PC could be much more efficient at less demanding tasks and at idle. Again, this can be fixed in the UEFI settings, but the average user will probably have no idea what they're looking at there. As far as value, I think $849 is a fair price, especially considering the tray cost of the Core Ultra processors is still pretty high. I could definitely do better going with a Ryzen APU only scratch build solution. However, for an Intel build, I could just about match the price, as I'd have to include at least a dedicated Arc A350 graphics to match the performance of the GTI's iGPU. In this circumstance, while a scratch built PC still offers more upgradability over the mini PC form factor, thanks to the PCIe expansion, the upgradability gap is smaller. However, at this price point, I'm not sure if the enthusiast customer base that may find the PCIe expansion appealing is willing to pay the cost over just scratch building a desktop PC, especially considering there will be an added cost for a proprietary GPU dock. But now, I want to hear from you, PC enthusiasts and gamers. Would you consider a powerful mini PC with PCIe expansion over a standard desktop? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're down there, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss the follow-up when I get the GPU dock. It should be interesting and you probably won't want to miss it.